So why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you for those joining us on Facebook. We appreciate you. Thank you also to everybody joining us on Zoom. As always, our Zoom chat is fully functional, so please feel free to communicate with each other or with Lisa or I. And if you have any questions, drop them in there, and I will try to work them into our conversation as we go through today. If you're joining us via Facebook, please share the video feed. We would love you to share our video feed today. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section, and I will be monitoring that, and we will make sure that we pull those into the conversation as well. So as always, I am not always, we did have a couple guest hosts, but today I am your host, Dustin Thompson from the Delaware Sierra Club. And joining me today is the lovely, wonderful, magnificent Lisa Locke from Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Interfaith Power and Light?
Okay. So, Lisa Locke. I am the Director of Programs for Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. I've been in Delaware only about 7 years now. I spent all the previous years in Michigan with also big spans of water, but fresh water. But how wonderful to come here and be able to hook up with this organization. Interfaith Power and Light, Delaware, is one of 40 state affiliates. So we are working together all around the country with a shared mission to address the causes and consequences of climate change and to scientifically inform and spiritually deepen our understanding of our relationship with the natural world and with each other, and then to act on those understandings. And we do that in a variety of ways, and of course every state is very different. You can imagine Alaska, Texas, Florida, Delaware, but our programs have been very on the ground, grassroots focused, working through faith communities to arrange energy audits and form green teams and plant pollinator gardens and promote renewable energy, get involved in advocacy issues. But so much of it is partnerships, and specifically also with faith communities of partnering on how we can support them in their earth care efforts.
Wonderful. We've had a few more people join us online and on the Zoom. So just to recap a little bit, for those that this is your first time, the chat's fully functional. Please use that to have any comments with each other, conversations with each other, or questions for me or Lisa and I. Don't want to upset any grammar people on the call.
That would be me.
Yeah, Lisa and me. Okay, me and Lisa? All right.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll get there. So, Lisa, what exactly is the one of the programs that you have going on that I've seen a number of times pop up on Facebook and in emails is the Climate Conversations program.
Right.
So could you tell us a little bit about that? What is the objective and how did this idea come about?
So it was actually in 2018, we started trying to reach out more with young people. And in high school and college, just beginning to do that. And we ended up hosting our first roundtable youth climate discussion. And that was partnering with Osher Lifelong Learning up in Wilmington. And we had we brought about 80 people together, and it was high school and college students, faith leaders and community leaders and seniors from Osher. And we just mixed them all around, mixed them up at roundtables, and students provided questions on climate and the environment. And just for 1 hour then, they spent talking to each other in these small groups, addressing those questions. And I got a chance to walk around and listen in, and really it was remarkable. It was fascinating, not only the specific answers we got to the questions, but the two other big takeaways for us were, one, how much people enjoyed it, how animated these conversations were. But two, how many people said, we just never do this. We never talk about these issues. So we said, well, okay, well, let's try to make that happen. And we put together a proposal and we took it to Energize Delaware, who funds another of our programs, Faith Efficiencies, I can talk about later. But it was amazing. It was one of those great stories where a plan comes to fruition. We brought them the concept and they approved it. And so they are now funding this program. And Energize Delaware, for those that don't know about them, it's a great organization. It's a 501c3. It was actually brought into existence by our state legislature. And they're the ones that receive energy money that comes into the state from polluting, from carbon emitting facilities like plants. And they use that money to put into programs for energy efficiency and conservation and renewable energy. So they have programs for commercial, for homeowners, for faith communities, for farmers, for schools, just trying to figure out the best way to put that money to work in ways that are going to help people. So they ended up funding this program, which was wonderful. So we have been, ever since then, so it started officially, officially this July, but we were sort of had a pilot for the year before that. And we've been going ever since. And obviously we've had to adapt with the COVID, but we've been able to do that. So it's been very exciting. And our purpose, we actually put this into some bullet points to make it clear for people. So I'm just going to read them off because I think it's helpful. So the goals of this, the idea is bringing people together, like up at Osher, in settings that are safe and respectful, so that people have a chance to intimately talk to each other about these issues that are so important. So it's to raise public visibility and individual consciousness, to encourage open and respectful dialogue among diverse audiences, to explore ways of talking about climate change and related issues that are less divisive and political and more unifying and practical, to identify areas of shared concern, even when you don't have complete agreement, to create and identify images and messaging that will inspire a deeper understanding, broader visions, bolder actions, and hope, certainly for everyone. And then to provide resources to support those actions and to inspire ongoing conversations. So that is the motivation for this program.
Wonderful, thank you. So this kind of was an original Delaware idea that you guys had. This wasn't like part of the national IPL sort of thing?
No, although, I mean, talking about issues obviously isn't unique, but, and the other thing that inspired us, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Katharine Hayhoe. I imagine many of you are, but she is one of the leading voices on climate change, and she's an evangelical climate scientist from Texas. And she's wonderful. She's younger, she's inspiring, she's energetic, and she's effective. And she did this great TED Talk that I would encourage anyone to watch. And it's called, "The Most Important Thing You Can Do to Address Climate Change is to Talk About It." And I know it's easy to think, well, talk is cheap. But the point is, I think that is where we need to start. Let me just say, I was thinking through this, and so I think if I've learned nothing else in the intersection of my personal life, my career, and my spiritual journey, it's the critical need we have to deepen our understanding and our reverence for the web of life and how that works and why that is so important. And I think that there is really such a almost a superficial understanding of how important this is. And not only how important it is, it's how fascinating and inspiring it is to learn about the richness of that web of life and how everything works together, and the importance of it to our own health and welfare and survival. So yes, where was I going with this? Help me out here, Dustin.
I don't know. It's something that drew me to the faith that I practice with, is that they talk about that a lot, and climate change also happens to come up a lot as well in the church that I attend. But that was one of the kind of interesting things. It's a lot of different religions that go to the church that I'm with, but it's all kind of centered around that interconnectivity. And I love having conversations about that, because it's really important. I think, part of the Sierra Club mission is, well, the mission of the Sierra Club is to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet, our environment. And so I think it's really important to, the interconnectivity of everything is really important to that mission. And I think it's kind of almost underpinned for me, in the meaning behind the mission and my job with the Sierra Club before COVID in particular. We're actually able to get out and explore, because when you're out and you're exploring some of our nature and wild, not so wild spaces here, but still kind of wild, you almost feel like a sense of ownership and a sense of pride, and then that drives you to want to protect what you have now, because it's a part of you, it's part of your identity, your experience in life. And it's you see those kind of connections where if this old growth forest was demolished for a housing place, that's a huge impact in you, more so if you've been there and explored that old growth forest, right? I use that as an example because that's happened recently. And so it was using that interconnectiveness and that exploration to really drive the protect factor. I think it makes it more real and substantive, and I think it's a really important thing.
And we all know how inspiring and healing it is to be out in nature, and how much that means to us, and how much better it would be for us all if we did more of it, and especially the young people these days that don't seem to get out and about as much, or have the same kinds of connections maybe that we did, say, when I was younger. Something we certainly want to get back to. I love that concept of no child left inside. So to inspire that. So how about I can tell you a little bit about how these actually work and what they look like.
Yeah, if you can kind of run us through, so I was going to ask that, is there kind of a theme, like you'll talk about a particular aspect of climate, the climate crisis, or what have you at an event, or is it just kind of however it goes?
So yeah, the great thing is that everyone can be modified or customized to the audience and their particular area of interest. We've done 22 of them so far, engaging over 700 people, and from people in libraries and classrooms and faith communities and community centers and advocacy groups and service groups. So everyone obviously is going to be different. But one of the things that we do is, and it was great when we would meet in person, the first thing we do after the introductions is have people fill out a questionnaire. And those questionnaires for all of those groups are very similar. So they'll have a few different things depending on the theme. But that gives us some great background information on people to keep, and it also helps them get their minds in the right place for what we're going to be talking about together. So after they've filled that out, then we'll have a facilitator generally at every table or in every room, and then people just start sharing their answers to those questions. So that might be, for example, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 being the greatest and 1 being the least, where is climate change rate in your issues of concern? And everyone would go around and answer that question. And then we might say, share 3 words or phrases that come to your mind when you think of climate change. And we go around and we share those. And we'll do that for, 2, 3, 4 questions. And then we've got all the other questions too that we'll find our way toward. And then we also try to split the time. We try to have at least a half an hour and even more if possible. But we try to split the time between one, sharing reflections and experiences, personal experiences and observations. And then the second half is talking about actions. Because obviously that's what it's all about, is how can we take action more effectively, both individually, and I think even more importantly, this is one of the things, the real benefits to these climate conversations is the way I think people can feel more connected. It's so easy to feel paralyzed about these issues that are so big and so many pieces to them. But when you start sharing and talking with each other and understanding how much interest and concern there is about these issues and talking about how we might work more effectively together in all different ways, people seem to come out of it much more hopeful. In fact, I've got some interesting statistics that I put together here. When I did a quick look at, and then afterwards we do a survey at the very end. And 3 of the questions in the survey are, did you come out of the discussion feeling more or less or the same convinced of the impacts of climate change? More or less or the same inspired to take action? More or less or the same hopeful? And 39% said they were more convinced of the threats of climate change after the conversation. 54% came out saying they felt more hopeful, and 66% came out saying they felt more inspired to take action than they did before. So I don't want to inflate that too much, after 1 hour of conversations or something like that, but it's encouraging, I think. And nobody said less for any of those coming out of the conversations.
That's probably one of the main keys.
Yeah, exactly. That would have
been less. We got to figure something out.
Yeah, something's wrong here. But
yeah.
So any group that's interested, we've got a good routine down now to be able to do it virtually online through Zoom rooms, and we can, like I said, customize it to if you have a special aspect of climate change you're interested in, or your group, or just to appeal more to the members of your group. Then we're happy to do that, and we adapt the questionnaires and find ways, obviously, to keep people engaged after that.
Yeah. So about how often are you doing these right now? I assume virtually.
So ideally, what we're budgeted for is 2 a month. We haven't, as we've been moving through the last few months, it's really only been about 1. Oh, but this is a fun thing that I think all of you will appreciate. One of the best things that has come out of this is that we've been working with a group of young people, mostly in colleges, but a few, I think we've connected all the major colleges in the state now, and a few high schools, and they have formed a Delaware Intercampus Climate Coalition. So we are now planning with them monthly climate conversations. And then each campus will take turns sort of specifically hosting one of them, bringing in a presenter for a very short presentation of 15-20 minutes, but that'll help frame a certain theme and then break into groups to discuss that. So we had our first one last month and brought in a speaker from the Sunrise Movement, which is one of these youth groups that are working on climate change. And they came on and spoke briefly, and then And then it was fun because they could drop into all of the different rooms and talk with the different groups for briefly while they were there and answer questions. And so it was really great. We're excited to see what's happening. They put together a website. We've got a logo and a Facebook page. And so it's exciting to think of what they might do in the midst of what a difficult time, just trying to get back into the routine of school and what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but they're committed to moving forward on this.
Yeah, there's not much routine about getting back to school this year for sure.
Oh, no.
It is, I've heard struggles on both sides, students and teachers, with the virtual schooling. So hearts out to all of you, the students and teachers who might see this. So how does IPL kind of, or does IPL and the Climate Conversation Program, does it look at that kind of interconnectivity, more spiritual side of humanity and the climate crisis, or is it a little bit separated from that aspect, or does that just kind of naturally often come up?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the group. And certainly many of the ones we've had have been specifically with faith communities. In fact, we had a great one last week for Peace Week, Delaware. And it was not a specific religious theme, although that was a part of it, certainly, because we opened it up with perspectives from 3 different faith leaders, Christian, Muslim, and Sikh. And Shweta Arya, our outreach director, is Hindu. So then she spoke a little bit too, and she's gone through Al Gore's climate reality training, which is wonderful to have her as a resource for that. But when we broke into the groups, it wasn't necessarily related to faith, although what it is related to, it's a moral issue. That's the bottom line, is that climate change and environmental stewardship are moral issues. So regardless of your faith, where you lie in that spectrum, this is a perspective that we all share. In fact, I've got this wonderful little flyer here called the Green Rule, which is like the Golden Rule, but it's do unto earth as you would have it do unto you. And it has scriptures from all the different faiths relative to this. So this is something that we all share in common, on more than an intellectual level, to be sure.
So I'm taking notes, some of the resources that you've talked about. So I'll have to get you to scan me a copy of that, or if I can find it online.
I've got it electronically, so I can send it to you or anybody.
I want to hyperlink the TED Talk that you were talking about.
Yes.
To see that.
And this is one of my favorite books, and it's a few years old. It's called Moral Ground, Ethical Action for a Planet in Peril. And one of the editors is from Michigan State University, or he was back then, and we actually brought him in as a speaker. But this is a collection of over 80 essays, 3 to 5 pages, from faith leaders, politicians, scientists, poets, rabble-rousers, activists, whatever. The Pope, the Dalai Lama, Barbara Kingsolver, Wendell Berry, economists. And it's just wonderful. It's so fun to pick up. And in fact, when we brought him in to speak, he spoke to the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. It was the largest attendance they'd ever had at a luncheon, which they have every month. And we ended up sponsoring a contest for the business community to write their own essays on this issue. So this is a moral issue for everybody.
So just a quick reminder as we're coming up on the half of the hour.
Yeah.
If anybody has any, it does. If anybody has any questions or comments that they would like to kind of chime into the conversation, make sure you put those in the chat as we're going through here. So what would you say the average audience is for the events? I guess maybe that's kind of a tough question given the pre-COVID, post-COVID, but maybe if you had to average out.
Average is about, number is about 30. We've had as many as 80. That was last, when was it? Oh, first of the year at Epworth, actually, and it was with several congregations, and they opened it up to the public. But so usually around 30, and then we break up the rooms into, say, 6 or 7 people is a nice number in the different rooms, so that you can really have a meaningful conversation with each other.
So does a lot of the conversation on the virtual side happen in the breakout rooms?
Yes, yes, that's the main purpose, or that we devote most of the time to those small groups. And then we all come back together and share some highlights from each of the groups with each other, and then talk about how we might go forward and stay connected. And really just even through, we have so many great resources. So we have a wonderful monthly newsletter that we put out now that has different resources all the time. We're doing monthly webinars on all different subjects. We've got one coming up next week on energy efficiency. October is Energy Awareness, National Energy Awareness Month. So we've got all these great ways to keep connected. And one in particular that we've been working on more that's exciting now is called Sacred Grounds. And it's a program of the National Wildlife Federation. And it's sort of facilitated by the Delaware Nature Society here. So we're teaming up with them. And it's a matter of working with faith communities to green, to make their grounds wildlife certified. That's the first part. The second part is, how do you integrate those same concepts into your worship, whether it's into your sermons or having services outside or having a labyrinth or an earth care display, which we put together for faith communities in their buildings. And then how can they take that out into the larger community and share those things with the larger community? So it's very cool. And then we've been connecting faith communities with each other. So we're targeting right now programs in Trolley Square, Newark, and down here in Lewis, Rehoboth. So,
wonderful. That's very exciting.
It is. It is.
Seems like this is a huge unifying issue then, if you're having such kind of broad participation.
And these are things that excite people. They're happy things, because climate change can be so heavy. So to think that you can be doing meaningful things through creating green space and pollinator gardens and
mini forests.
Mini forests, exactly. That was our latest webinar. Yeah. So
yeah. Do you have that online where people can go back and watch that, or?
Our recording didn't work. I know.
I've had it happen to me too.
So good. It was so good. But we're going to be following up on that for sure.
Yeah, if you could create the mini forests on some faith organization grounds, that would be.
Yes. Putting 300 trees in a space of 6 parking spots.
Yeah.
Trees in a piece. Yeah. It's very
that
cool.
Would be pretty amazing to see.
Yeah.
Pop up all over the Delaware region.
And then getting young people involved with that is so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about connecting with the earth, particularly at a young age. When I was growing up, so those that don't know, don't tell anybody. Just stays between us. I did not grow up in Delaware. I know it's a sin, but I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, along the Appalachian Trail and Caledonia Park and all that, out in Western PA. And so I was, and I stayed with my grandparents a lot. And so they lived on a good plot of land that was, had woods. They were in a double wide trailer, but they had like a nice section of land with it that they had like a nice garden that I got to learn a little bit about gardening, mainly how to kill things. It seems all that stuck, it seems like, because I can't grow anything really. But they had a lot of woods adjacent to their property. And so it was one of those situations, you just kind of open the door, kick the kids out in the morning, and then like don't come back until lunchtime, and then get back out again. And we just run through the woods like all day, very connected to nature, growing up. there's no way to see that didn't have a huge influence on the fact that I would later, become a staff for an environmental organization. I think you can't really probably separate those two things out. Not to say that every kid needs to grow up and make it their job to save the planet, but every kid should grow up and make it their job to save the planet.
Right.
And so, aside from having these great TV shows that I grew up with, like Captain Planet, Magic School Bus, like to actually interact with nature and be able to plant like a micro forest, right, or whatever, mini forest, whatever it's called, or have like a communal garden space, or a community garden, which there's actually one community garden like down the road, maybe 5 or 6 blocks from my house, which is really cool. It's super dense. You can't really get into it very much when it's actually growing in. It's just really cool to see as you drive by. And but to be able to do that sort of stuff, I think is missing. And so from a lot of communities, and so to bring that back in, I think particularly for some people, maybe it would be even easier to bring that back in through the faith community. Would be amazing.
Right.
I think
and spending time talking to each other about these things and brainstorming, and then figuring out a plan of how we can do it together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so if somebody wants to kind of get involved in this moving forward, or is there another event planned coming up that people can kind of get involved on the climate conversation, or how could people host their own climate conversation?
So just contact me personally, and if you can get them that information, my email address, my phone, you're welcome to contact me and I can work with you on that. We have some tentative things I can't not quite announce yet, but it could be very fun, kind of different kind of groups, hopefully coming up, but we're still working on them. And we'll see what happens with the Intercampus Climate Coalition. The first one was really geared to students, but I think it'd be very cool to open that up to the larger community too, in the coming months. And so and that's a great opportunity to have those intergenerational discussions. So, and you can keep, and signing up for our newsletter for sure. And really it's once a month. Then you can, because we would put in information on any events like that in there. So.
Great. Well, I will start with you. I'll put your contact info and the resources as well. When we upload these onto our website, we upload them on the YouTube, and then the YouTube goes on our website. For anybody that came in a little bit late, you can go back and watch the beginning. It'll be up likely tomorrow, and it will have all the resources that we've kind of talked about throughout the episode in there as well. So we did get one question from Victoria. She said, I just applied to teach a class in the spring at Osher based on Project Drawdown. Good one. And think some of your techniques could fit well with that, which I would agree.
We are working on that right now. In fact, we're involved in some eco challenges, which are part of that. Now, that's an amazing project. And one of the most amazing things, for those that don't know about it, it's this group, Paul Hawken, who, if you might be familiar with him, of Smith and Hawken, but he's one of the leading voices and researchers on this issue and in the business community. And he was part of this international research study that came up with the 80 to 100 top climate solutions and quantified them as far as costs and carbon and all of those things. 3 of the top 6 have to do with food. Number 3 is food waste. Food waste. That's something we can all do on a daily basis, is have an impact on that. Eating lower on the food chain and sustainable farming practices, I think. And number 6 was educating women around the world. So empowering. But yeah, that's a drawdown is wonderful. That's very cool.
Yeah, so she was inspired, Victoria, I hope I'm getting your pronouns correct, to changing to a mostly plant-based diet. as such an effective thing for individuals to do. So how is that received in your experience? And as a follow-up question for me, is that ever get talked about during any of the climate conversations?
So we've been talking about that a lot. And in fact, one of our recent webinars was on climate and health. And we had people, physicians specifically, we had the president of the Physicians for Social Responsibility on that call, as well as the president of the Delaware Health Alliance, but talking about those things. And yes, people are open to it. It's, we're not going to turn everybody into vegetarians, that's for sure, or vegans. But to get them understand the importance of it and the value, they can certainly cut back significantly. And people, I think, are willing to do that and do it in a fun way. We've had, well, before, potlucks together or sharing recipes, Yes, so it is becoming more, I think people are more open to that. And it is so important.
Yeah, I actually, so my wife and I went, we didn't make the full trip to vegetarian, but we're pescatarian with very, minimal fish involvement. But seafood was a hard thing to walk away from, as it turned out. And so, but it actually, at the climate strike at UD, at all these students, amazing students, were really rallying on that idea of being more responsible with our diets. Well, they were rallying for veganism, but the overall message of being responsible with our diets, knowing that is a huge contributor to climate change. Mm-hmm. And so kind of inward reflection of like, man, I'm not walking the walk here. So I got a little bit closer to walking the walk, a lot closer. It was like meat, starch, maybe a vegetable. That was like every meal. Uh-huh. And so even breakfast, it was, and so now it's, very, very rare that, and it's been really no meat since then, but I'll still throw in fish every now and then, which I guess is still considered meat, but I've been even trying to get more sustainable with that as well, which is, it's tough. It's tough to be sustainable when it comes to fish, because it's really hard to kind of trace back where the fish is coming from when you're buying it from, like, the market at the food co-op or at Sprouts or what have you, where they just have it on display. You know what I mean? It's not like packaged saying, hey, this is a product from such and such, no hormones or anything like that, like meat is, like chicken and beef and all that. So it is tough to be sustainable around knowing which things are sustainable in the seafood category. But I'm educating.
We have to find ways that work for us.
Yeah.
And especially finding ways, the things that are going to be the most effective, that are going to have the greatest impact. And I think, I just can't, recycling's not enough.
Yeah.
Small steps are not enough. We really need to find ways to take big steps. We have to take this seriously, but we can do it in ways that are uplifting and add to the quality of our life rather than making us suffer. So,
yeah. And
we can figure that out together.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the ways that we highlighted on our Sierra, I'm pretty sure it's still on the Sierra Club homepage, I'll link in the resources as well, how people can choose if they're in a Delmarva territory, can choose their energy supplier. And we kind of walk through the steps of how you could go about choosing your energy supplier in Delaware. So even though you're going through Delmarva for your cable lines and all that, your utility, you can pick a renewable supplier for Delmarva to procure your energy from. And so there's a number of different companies in Delaware that have, 100%, 50%, whatever, renewable packages that you can buy your energy from at a certain kilowatt hour rate. And so we kind of walk people through that. So if you haven't checked that out, you haven't chosen your energy supplier if you're in Delmarva, that's something you can do right now.
If I can mention something, our other program that's funded by Energize Delaware is Faith Efficiencies.
Yeah.
where we are now facilitating, and I walk them through this myself, getting an energy audit for their buildings, for the faith communities. Now through the end of the year, there is no cost. And we're talking $3,000 to $8,000 normally these would cost. And they are waiving that fee to support those faith communities in making their buildings more energy efficient. And then part of that is educating the members on what's available to them. And this is such an important, easy thing to do. Get your home an energy audit. For $50 through the end of the year, you can get a full energy audit. When they come, they will install up to $200 worth of energy saving products while they're there. And then you're eligible for rebates and things like that. So that's a wonderful program. And
So if they want to learn more about faith efficiency or the energy audits, do you have anywhere that they could go?
Right here, and they can get in touch with me again. They can go to Energize Delaware, and on our website, delawareipl.org, which needs some work, but under our works, you'll see there's faith efficiencies, climate conversations, Windows of Hope, another program we have that's very cool. The documents are on there and can be downloaded. So
great. Well, we're right at our time for today.
Okay.
I wanted to thank you, of course, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining in.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that watched on Facebook too. We had a bunch of people jumping in on Facebook. Sally on Facebook actually jumped in and said that she was at the conversation with Osher, and it was just a great thing.
Oh, great.
So a little shout out there from our Facebook audience.
Great.
So next week we have Ariel Peoples, who is going to come on and talk about the history of agriculture as it relates to the Black community, and what Bright Spot Farms, which is a local organization in Wilmington, is doing to help heal that history and trauma and bring people moving forward together. And it's going to be an intense, probably, but really, really important and good conversation. And you definitely don't want to miss it. And so we hope that you go to our website, sierraclub.org/Delaware/live stream series. So live-stream-series. And you can sign up for any of the upcoming talks. We'll actually have Energize Delaware on the week after that. Tony DePrima himself is going to come on and talk to us about how you can finance your clean energy improvements to your house. So you don't miss that. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
I'll be waiting to hear from you.
Yes.
Bye.